question is like, what do people talk about when they talk about white Americans? And maybe they don't. Maybe they only talk about Americans. But I want to see if we can go into this.
I wouldn't say they talk about white Americans. It would be white people in general.
Uh-huh.
And it's more so, how do I say this?
And you can't offend anybody. Because you're not talking about you. You're talking about the conversation in your country. So don't worry about offending anyone.
It's really most of our interaction with white people from home is when a few number come to the country as expatriates or what we see off the media. So we don't really have like a defined view of them, apart from the fact that when the British came and they ruled over us, and the way they installed our country, how it is, how it came to be, and how they said some of our hairstyles were bad or stuff like that. So apart from that, that's really what comes to mind when I think of white people, not white Americans.
Okay, so when you think about coming to the U.S., where are you going? Where were you coming to? Like, who's here in the United States?
When I think about that,
we go back to when you were preparing to come to the U.S.
So when I first came, I came with the perceptions of all I knew about the U.S. from TikTok, Twitter, or what I see on CNN, stuff like that. But when I first came and I met white Americans, black Americans, my opinions started to change. At first, when I first came, they were really nice people. You talk to at the airport, you talk to a white person there, and they're very welcoming into the place. Mm-hmm. And I think I've been here for 2 years now. So by now, I think it's not they're being nice. It's more so work ethic. So the customer service is really good. So people are taught at work to be welcoming regardless of where you're coming from. Mm-hmm.
And have you noticed a difference between white Americans and black and brown Americans? Your experiences. Just focus on you, not like what you've heard. Just focus on you in these 2 years. By the way, do you is this not? Haven't you always wanted to ask an African this? You know what I mean? My whole life I've been waiting to ask an African that question right there. You got here to the U.S. What's the difference that you've seen between your interactions with white people and black and brown people? Right.
Okay, so first off, when I came, I would say there's a point of privilege that Americans in general all have. Mm-hmm. They live in a different world that is normal to them. So that was the first shock.
So Americans in general?
Americans in general.
All Americans?
Yes.
Yep, okay, got it. Which changes the game. That's kind of how we ended class last time in talking to Maya, right? Yeah. It's like, whoa, hang on a second, right? Okay, go ahead.
And for white Americans, the couple of them that met me, that came towards me, and the freshman year, talking to people, a lot of them are curious, very curious, from where you're from. Although they already have perceptions about Africans in general, because when I first came, I didn't actually see myself as African. Yes, I am African, but back home, nobody says, yeah, I'm African. You say where you're from, your tribe, yeah, and then your nationality. So you have to get used to answering questions from white people so you're from Africa. Actually, I've been to Zambia or something like that, and you have to answer in a way that is nice, because you also understand that they're trying to relate to you in some form.
Yeah.
but still it has no relation to me because I've never been to Zambia. I've never been to even the northern parts of my country.
So that would be like someone going there and you saying, "Oh yeah, you're from North America. You're from the U.S. Oh, I was in Mexico. I was in Cancun once."
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically.
Like, so you see that, right? Y'all get that. Or like Ecuador. Oh, I was in Brazil. It's like, yeah, okay, right, okay, all right. But you find, but what I'm hearing though is what you're finding with white Americans is that they're curious, and how is that for you?
It's both. It's nice. It's interesting because you can see when someone is genuinely like curious about where you're from, has no idea, like has never been to the continent, sees like you have a whole different way of life, and often when I say I'm from the Yoruba tribe, especially when you say tribe,
Yeah.
like there's like a glow in their eyes. It's like, oh, you're from this tribe. And then,
Even to hear you say tribe, because we learn that you can't say tribe, man.
oh, wow.
I mean, we learned that. Tribe is a thing that we talked about that has a negative connotation to it. Tribe is connected to uncivilized, like it's a word from way in the past, right? So we've kind of learned to not say that. But go ahead, yeah.
Just on what you said, I did realize that because there was a time I had a conversation with my friends, and it was about a popular YouTuber, KSI, and I was like, oh yeah, he's from the Yoruba tribe too. And when they heard me say tribe, they were like, oh wow, like, do I know his uncle or something? Do I know his dad or something? And
Yeah.
like, so I learned then that every time I said tribe, they already had like this old school, like me holding spears and
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Right, exactly. That's the thing. That's what we get.
Yeah.
It's like you and camels, you know? It's like tribe represents, again, uncivilized, spears, walking around with half clothing on sort of thing. But we don't understand that people still, that's really, really important. And there's, I mean, in Nigeria, how many tribes? Like, I mean, there's hundreds.
There's like 200 tribes.
Yeah, 270, I think it's 270 something.
Yeah, it's more
right?
than 200, yeah.
But there's three main, the
Tribes,
largest,
yeah.
yeah. So I'm gonna step off of this a second, but I just want to point something out. Did you hear him make a reference to being from the continent? Like Africans say this, right? Sub-Saharan Africans. Do North Africans say that? You go, the continent. That means Africa. Do you say that? Like in Tunisia? Yeah. Like you don't get that here in the United States. That's the thing, because that's the center of humanity, of the continent. It's the motherland to all of us. So, it's just interesting how you threw that out there, a language thing. Okay. Thanks, man. We're going to come back to you. Stella, I don't remember. Well, wait. I know. Can we? I'm gonna just. Can you? Oh no, we can't do that. All right, never mind. Stella, it's the same question. I don't remember what it was. Yeah, what do people in your country? We're gonna do Korea here, okay? What do people in your country say about white Americans?
I don't exactly know, like how they would respond when
hold
they
it close.
Oh, I think people.
No. What? Just in general, like, what's the is there a conversation? Because maybe there isn't. So sorry to interrupt, but yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So there are a lot of foreigners featured in like TV shows in these days in Korea. So, and most of them are actually mainly white. So when people in Korea think of foreigners, white Americans are almost instant stereotype
Okay.
how they would think of as a foreigner.
Hold the mic really
Okay.
steady. So so in Korea, when you're thinking about your experience, this is your experience, by the way. So understand, and especially if you're watching the live stream and going, oh, that's not how we do it here. Look, this is their experience. So you might have a different experience, or anybody in the class. It's all good. So when people think about foreigners, from the West anyway, it's associated with white.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be Tay here.
Sorry, no.
No. Okay. All right. So what do they say? What's like a?
So stereotypical white, so I would say. So they're usually blonde, blue eyes. So people would say something about appearance, like being beautiful. That's usually like how would they think in the first place, like instantly.
Uh-huh.
Culturally,
Wait, hang on. Whiteness is associated with blonde and blue eyes. Okay?
yeah,
All right. Okay. That's big.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. And is that seen as the most, and you're saying that's kind of seen as the more, maybe more beautiful or more? Okay. All right, go ahead.
I actually like have been out of Korea for so long that I don't know how recent like
No, but
Koreans would
go
be.
to your experience back, because,
Go to my experience of
yeah, just your experience in Korea. How did you, when you were young, think about,
Okay, so my uncle was Canadian and he was blonde and blue eyes, and that's how I spoke English, how I learned to speak English.
uh-huh.
So I was never afraid of like talking to foreigners in the subways when they needed help or something like that. But most of my friends, like who were educated and born and raised in Korea, were usually like they would not step up to talk to them because I don't know. We're like it looks like even though we're in the same space, it separated us from different culture, like
Uh-huh.
different space.
Uh-huh. Okay. So let me ask this to you. So you're from the more upper middle class,
Yeah,
upper class.
yeah,
Okay.
I would say so.
How do people in your class talk about or think about poor white Americans? How do you, just here, even in the United States, when you're like outside of State College or you go to Walmart in State College and you're seeing all these white people who are not rich and white and beautiful and whatever, like how are they perceived? Like do they enter the conversation? Is that
How I interact?
no, how do you perceive them?
I feel like I'm not gonna answer the direction that you would answer, but I've been in the U.S. for so long that I just see like when I see people in Walmart, I'll see like there are people in Walmart.
They're Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's different than in Korea, right? Mm-hmm. So what do people in Korea, let me ask you this, right? Is there anything that people associate with your experience, right?
Okay.
Koreans, even Koreans here, like they associate with white people. What do people associate with white people?
Okay, rich could be one. Wealthy, like American dreams could be in mine. Marvel.
Wait, so you're telling me that people overlook poor white people? They're not thinking about poor white people?
No, not usually.
Okay, that's my experience also.
Yeah, I don't think people think about poor white people when they think about like white people. I think they just, I don't know, what you search on Google image, like white people, like that would what Koreans would also think. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you say that in Nigeria, the same thing?
Not really.
How often do people think of white people and break down the classes? Upper class white people, middle class white people, working class, poor white people. Is that ever a conversation?
I would say it's never really a conversation, and the few times we think of white people in general, it's more like, yeah, upper class.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is actually really illuminating, right? To me. It's like, whoa, when most white people aren't rich. And that, is this kind of conversation. Awaleed.
Hi.
All right. Back in Saudi Arabia, how do y'all think and talk about white people?
Okay. I didn't want to go first because I want to think about it a little bit.
Okay.
But I want to say that in Saudi, the place where I live in, like in the eastern side from Saudi, we do have a good realization of how white people is, because we do have a lot of like white Americans working at Aramco for like the oil company, and they've been working there like from the 50s or like even before that.
Yeah, and so you know, the Eastern Province is really where Aramco is centered, and so when someone says they live in the Eastern Province, it's like you know they're working for
Yeah.
Aramco. And can you just say what Aramco is?
Aramco is the largest oil company in the world, and it's centered in Saudi Arabia.
And they
Bahrain.
control your lives. All right,
Kind
so go
of.
ahead.
It's not-
Ah, they do. They control the world. All right, go ahead. Okay, so white people.
Yeah. So from like my point of view, I have like talked to white people before, and I've been taught by some white Americans, like in the class I've taken before. So from my point of view, I have talked to Americans that I do know how like how they think about us. Once they're there at Saudi, they just say we did have like a bad idea about Saudi and how they're like really like most of them are terrorists and stuff like that, and they're not good people, and they all hate like white Americans or like Americans in general. So
they don't hate.
So before coming,
Yeah.
they're like scared. They feel
Yeah.
that we're all hating them, but once
Yeah.
they're there in Saudi and they do see the community there, they change their minds. So from my point of view, like Saudis in general, like in all parts of Saudi, they do know that there are like a good percentage of Americans who hate Saudis, and I know that.
So hang on. So let me be clear, right? So in Saudi Arabia, there is the sense that, okay, a lot of Americans really do not like Arabs and Arab Muslims, and Saudis in particular.
Yeah, it's especially clear because I don't want to get into politics, but whenever like a U.S. president want to like run as a candidate,
Yeah.
the first thing he's gonna do is like he's gonna try like saying bad things about Saudi. I'm gonna make them the pariah and stuff like that. So once I know that like whenever you're running as a candidate, you want to get as much votes as you can.
Yeah.
So if you want to like say some hate speech about some people and you're gonna get some more votes, what does that mean?
Okay, wait. All right, hang on. Yeah. Oh my God! All right, but hang on. I'm gonna just sidestep that question for a second, not because it's just I don't want to go down that path.
Okay.
It's an interesting path.
Okay.
Do you make a distinction in Saudi Arabia between white people and other people in the United States?
The topic of race isn't really like a really popular topic. I think even when you look at the Saudi ID, you wouldn't find like race as a thing.
Okay.
Like
okay.
here in the US, I've especially like whenever like US officer stops me, he asks me like, "What's your race?" or like, you know, and because it's not like mentioned there, it's like white, but I'm not white.
Okay.
Because Middle Easterns are white in there.
All right. Okay. But go back to Saudi.
Okay.
When people are talking about America, do they ever talk about the different racial groups in the United States? Talk about black people and white people and Asians, or is that part of the conversation?
Yes, of course, especially when the Black Lives Matter thing happened, and like there was this backlash. Like there was like in Saudi, especially, there was like some conversations about how like things is happening in the U.S. like because people there start like in Saudi, they think that U.S. people are sometimes racist to the minorities.
Okay, hang on. So there is a conversation about how white people, because you said U.S. people, but what you're talking about is white people are or sometimes or often or whatever the case is. What would you say? Sometimes? Often?
I would say sometimes when there's something viral happening.
Then it's like it's racism and white people are being racist.
Right. And it isn't like Americans, it's just generally the West, I would say.
The West, okay.
Yeah,
So like
from the Middle Eastern like point of view, it's just the West, like Europe and the US. Most probably it's the US because a lot of things happen here.
But when you talk about racism, who do you have in mind? Who do people have in mind? White people in Europe and in the US?
I wouldn't say that.
No, you would, or you wouldn't?
Like
you want to say that?
No, I wouldn't say that because what do you mean when I think of racism? I think of white people.
When you're having a conversation in Saudi Arabia about racism, about the United States and racism in the United States, and you say, oh yeah, but there's this racism in the U.S. Americans are being racist. Which Americans? White Americans or black Americans?
Yeah, white Americans.
Or brown Americans, not Asians. So like Stella, people look like Stella.
I haven't heard like some things like talking about like black and like Hispanics or something like that. It's
just
mostly
white
like white
people.
beings, something like doing something to minorities.
Doing something to minorities, and including maybe doing something against Arabs.
Yeah.
Is there, so you have the idea that, yeah, a lot of Americans don't like Arabs. Do you have the idea that black people don't like Arabs? Black Americans don't like Arabs, or is it white Americans?
I think because here in the U.S. we're a minority like them, so they do like feel us because there is some like hate, not against Arabs. Let's say just Muslims at this point.
Okay,
Because-
all right. So when I'm looking around, so here I want to just stay with this. I'm trying not to. By the way, I'm trying not to put words in his mouth, right? I'm trying to just clarify. It's like really. So when I look around the room and I see. Well, Damilare doesn't count because he's Nigerian, but you wouldn't know that. You would just you'd assume he's black American. But when I look around the room and I see black people, so most Saudis back home, if they were here, they would assume like, okay, black people, all these people here experience some racism at the hands of white people. So like they would kind of understand where you're coming from, and white people are the problem.
I would say just like generally speaking. It's
Generally
not-
speaking, yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
not everyone, because there are some people from all different races. I've been like through some experiences where people were like racist to Arabs or to Muslims.
Yeah, okay, I got you. No, and Arabs, and we're not even talking about the racism among Arabs, right? So we can go there by Arabs toward other people, right? We can go there in a hot minute, but that's not on the subject today. So.